My name is Timothy Voigt, and I am a proud owner of a rain garden.
I had heard of rain gardens before I had seen them, but very new to me that my backyard would be an option for one, and that, someone would be able to help me facilitate it.
I did not expect that we could have this opportunity to have a bioswale. I really didn't know what a bioswale was.
We know in our upstream suburban area, we have a lot of residents. A lot of the land area is residential, so we know we need to work with homeowners, hence StreamSmart.
The Stormwater Collaborative partnered with Pennsylvania Resources Council to spearhead the first kind of program of StreamSmart. We recognize this whole area was developed before there was any kind of stormwater management. And so it's really important that we get residents to rethink how they manage stormwater on their properties.
A lot of our watersheds have over 50% of all the land use is residential. So if we're not including people who own houses, then we're really missing a big segment of the population.
I've lived in this house for the last 5 years. I grew up across the street. I did live in the city for a couple years, but chose to move back here when I had my son. The creek only fills up when it rains. It fills up rather high, rather fast. I watched the whole area behind my parents' house turn into a huge lake. And that's when I started reading, why does this creek only fill up sometimes? Why is it not full all the times? Why am I in a 100% floodplain and my neighbors are not? And realized disrupting properties, adding things here, changing things here, and not putting places for water to go is going to cause havoc. And that's what happened.
The Wissahickon Creek is impaired. It doesn't mean it's highly polluted. It means that the water that rains down on the properties, especially the impervious surfaces, just runs right off the top of lawns and of pavement and goes right into the creek, which makes them really flashy. We chose this location because we felt that the headwaters, the very top of the Sandy Run, the largest tributary of the Wissahickon, we could focus in this one area and demonstrate an impact and start to create a creek that would hold water more often than not and flood less. The biggest thing we've heard in all the audits in this neighborhood have been, it's a soggy backyard, I can't use it at all.
We were completely unable to hang out in my backyard. It was water washed. If you walked back here, your feet soaked in. You watched flies and bugs come up around you. We were never back here. We had a back deck, we didn't use it. So it was great to have property, but it was property we didn't use.
Anne contacted us and made an appointment for us to do a home audit. We walked around the property and tried to kind of envision what could be done here.
I really wasn't sure what I was getting into, but got to meet some wonderful ladies who educated me on my property and offered some help.
Basically, we just listen to the homeowner and they tell us where their lawn is really wet and soggy, where there are puddles that are standing water that breed mosquitoes, what parts are unusable, what kinds of storms do what to their property. We will then follow up with the homeowner and find out if they want to get a rain barrel, get a rain garden, do a downspout plan, or what projects that they want to do based on what we recommend.
The biggest thing they mentioned was the rain garden. And the rain garden was to help essentially with the majority of my backyard in hopes of making it more livable, more sustainable for both plants and me and my family. So a wonderful man, Kevin, came out with a mini excavator, drove it all around the backyard and dug up my backyard. I watched him remove soil and replace it with sand and different kinds of soil. He built this large berm, covered it in grass seed and a bunch of netting and planted plants. Taught me the science behind it, explained to me the plants that he was putting in and why. It was amazing what he did. Essentially, rainwater starts, or our sump pumps turn on from the basement and water's dispensed into the beginning of the garden, and it follows the path around the back of my garden into the main swell at the bottom here. It works like magic. I don't know how it works, but every time it rains, it fills up, the water flows down, my bottom swell is filled, and then over an hour to two, the water dissipates. It goes away, and my backyard's dry. No more bugs, a dry backyard, birds in my backyard, frogs in my backyard. Lived here for 37 years, never saw frogs before. So it's attracting all different kinds of life.
This was the first big project we did, and it's really the key project of the entire neighborhood because she is right next to the creek. And this one project between Anne and her next door neighbor, Danny, manages the entire street's water. So all of the backyards that slope down to the creek, all that water ends up in Anne's rain garden, and it manages all of that water. We'll do audits for anybody who wants, but we're looking at where are the really key areas like this property that mean we can manage a whole street with just one project and where we can really get more bang for our grant funders' buck.
When we initially started outreach, we did a public meeting over at Manor College to get any interested people in, and we did a lot of like targeted outreach of mailings. And then we did a series of audits in the spring of 2019, and we found this property.
The property had a very large footprint of cement, so there was a large amount of water runoff from the property when we bought it.
I said, you know, I would love to catch this river that is literally cascading down our driveway. And they said, oh, we have these illustrations we can show you.
We have this large driveway, a lot of impervious here, and it was sort of a natural fit then to do the bioswale along it and help to capture a lot of that.
They came out and did an audit of the property and calculated how much runoff the berm would catch when they built it, and there was an application process for the grant that was approved. Not only did we get our hands dirty, but our two kids who've also done a lot of volunteering for the watershed got their hands dirty along with local students. It was a lot of digging and a lot of sewing.
The idea behind the project here is then that it takes in water up here behind me, flows off the driveway and across land, and then it filters through all of these plants of various mix of native plants and some grasses as well, and it slowly releases out then or infiltrates into the ground. And so the idea behind it is it's just slowing the rush of stormwater towards the creek to help with the volume issues in the creek.
It actually catches an amazing amount of rain. When you see the amount of runoff that comes off of this property during a heavy storm, certainly we were very happy to help control that.
It catches so much water. It's been fantastic.
It's a beautiful natural element because it's sown with lots of wildflowers and natives.
It's great habitat too. There's definitely a lot more bees and butterflies and insects.
Especially during lockdown last year, we saw an amazing amount of bird life and a much larger variety of butterflies. And we actually got a snapping turtle while walking down our driveway.
I think it's definitely made people think more about their backyards.
This is suburban Philadelphia, and kind of the concept of a yard has been, you know, mow your grass.
People are used to seeing lawns. They're not used to seeing native meadows or rain gardens taking up the spot that lawns used to.
What we want to see is sort of a shift in the aesthetics where people are allowing their yard to be, they'll have a space for the yard and the lawn, the kids can play, but they also will have other parts of the yard where they'll be like, this could naturalize a little bit.
And it still can be an enjoyable part of your yard. It's just reframing how you think about it then.
Every now and then there's a negative connotation where someone gets a rain garden and someone's like, oh, I don't like that. But we're finding with the Doug Tallamy book that people are really engaging more in this idea of turning their properties into something that works for nature, not just working for biodiversity, but can we also work for water quality and stormwater? And we're finding there's a growing willingness in the community for that kind of work.
We always tell homeowners once they do an audit with us, or especially if they get a project, to work on their neighbors, talk to their uphill neighbors and convince them, you know, so that everybody uphill is helping everybody downhill, and it really kind of starts to change the mentality of the community.
When you have a great community, it brings people together. I think people were very excited. And I think the fact this happened around the year of the pandemic allowed a lot of different conversations to happen. People asked questions of why would you do something like this? And immediately when I would answer my backyard was wet, everybody would nod and know exactly what I was talking about. And now the fact that my kids are back here playing, everyone gets excited to see family, to see kids out and about. It sparks conversation that normally wouldn't have been there.
Really the mission of TTF is to connect our communities to their creeks and to help the people that we work with to become better advocates and be more knowledgeable about their creeks. So this is a project that exactly aligns with that.
What Wissahickon Trails aims to do with our Stream Smart program is connect the larger water quality issues with what people can do in their own backyards. And I think there's something really empowering about realizing that just doing a project in your own backyard can not only benefit you and your immediate neighbors, but it can benefit the entire watershed. If enough people start to do something, then that collaborative effort will really make a difference for water quality in the Wissahickon.